Hello everyone. Since this is either a highlight, a standalone book, or the first episode in a series, I'm jumping in to remind you what the rules are for this podcast. First rule is, no real people stories. That means that any details from our own lives are merely anecdotal, we do not read books about real people, and we are not reading historical fiction. The second rule is that we are basing our analyses off of how the author treats characters and what they put them through. We are not judging the accuracy of the trauma, the accuracy of any actual conditions that may be portrayed, nor the authenticity of a character's reaction to that trauma or that particular condition. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. The hosts are not trained professionals, and their opinions come solely from personal experience. In this episode, we discuss fictional depictions of trauma and violence that may not be suitable for all audiences. Please take care of yourselves. Specific content warnings for each episode can be found in the show notes. Events in the media are discussed in approximate order of escalation. This episode contains spoilers.
Nicole.
And I'm Robin, and this episode on Books That Burn, we are discussing The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo. We have the blurb from the publisher. Li Lan, the daughter of a respectable Chinese family in colonial Malaysia, hopes for a favorable marriage, but her father has lost his fortune, and she has few suitors. Instead, the wealthy Lim family urges her to become a ghost bride for their son, who has recently died under mysterious circumstances. Rarely practiced, a traditional ghost marriage is used to placate a restless spirit. Such a union would guarantee Li Lan a home for the rest of her days, but at what price? Night after night, Li Lan is drawn into the shadowy parallel world of the Chinese afterlife, where she must uncover the Lim family's darkest secrets and the truth about her own family. So quick housekeeping detail. We are aware that there is a Netflix series based on this book, but neither of us have seen it, and thus ends the references we will make to it. That was it.
Well, the on-purpose references anyway.
Yeah, any on-purpose. We're not referring to it. Whatever coincidences of using the same source material, of this book for the show.
I kind of wonder if it's
not coincidental, but not targeted. So our first topic is murder. It's a good episode when murder is the minor character spotlight.
Murder. Judas, no.
It's always a good time. So, what were you thinking for this?
For murder?
Yes.
Wow. So, we have kind of an interesting thing going on here, because the groom of our intended wedding party is dead at the beginning of the book.
Mm-hmm.
However, we find out, not immediately, but fairly quickly, I would argue, that he was most likely murdered and not died of disease, as previously stated.
Yeah, we're going to try not to spoil whether he's right, but he is at the very least convinced that he was murdered.
He at least is pretty sure that it was, that this is what happened.
And so from the afterlife, he is trying to get some kind of revenge in addition to trying to get Li Lan as a bride.
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to talk more about the trying to get Li Lan things in our final topic, which will be stalking. But for now, focusing on the fact that he is definitely dead and probably murdered.
Well, and they also have so we're not gonna spoil the plots and the twists and turns. But the interesting thing, I think, from a reader perspective, is that even though this is a not inconsequential plot point, It's not the biggest of the plot points, but it's not insignificant. From a reader perspective, it almost doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I mean, tipping our hand a little bit on the rating when we get to the wrap-up, but, like, that he is dead matters much more to matters much more to Li Lan than that Lim Chien-ching, whether or not he was murdered. Like, most of the plot commences, because we're following Li Lan's perspective, most of the plot follows her, and so to her, it is mostly incidental as to how he ended up dead.
I mean, even at the most, like, significant point, it only really matters how this happened because he's trying to blame a particular person for it, and she actually cares about that person, and arguably that person is one of fewer than 5 people in the whole book that she cares about and what happens to them at all.
Yeah,
so,
like,
you know, it's a thing to push her to go investigate and undermine her trust and feelings about this person, but it's not
about Lim Chien-ching, not for Li Lan.
What?
It's saying it's not about Lim Chien-ching for Li Lan at all.
Right. It is a push at her, not justice for him.
Right. Yeah, like, she cares whether this other person is a murderer, but she doesn't have specific emotions about whether Lim Chien-ching is dead and whether that death was a murder. Like, she doesn't want to have this other person be a murderer. Yeah. Feel like I'm going a little circular here, but you get my point.
Right. Well, but I think the important thing to talk about with so I think we should kind of go down our list. As far as level of emphasis in narration, we've kind of stated that, I think. The fact that it was probably maybe a murder matters much less than its effect on her behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And only briefly. Like, there's a couple of moments where she kind of investigates what's going on, but it's far secondary to a lot of other things, including, and not limited to, a topic we'll talk about later, and the pressure being put on her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say more about that now.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like we're really supposed to care about whether he was murdered. Because not that you can't care about whether a terrible person died, but he's a pretty terrible person, not in, like, some kind of, like, grand scale of harm, but on the small personal scale.
But, like, practical in the moment at this time, he is pretty terrible.
He was and is, in the afterlife, a deeply unpleasant person with a lot of access to money who uses that money and influence to bend people around him and make his life better by making their lives miserable. And so it doesn't feel like we're supposed to be upset that he's dead. Except that he uses being dead as an opportunity to try and get something out of Li Lan that she doesn't have any tie to him. It is so hard to just talk about the murder without talking about the stalking.
Well, that's okay. We're gonna...
Yeah, we'll go to that soon.
So, perspective of this trauma, we get him talking to our main character, but we don't see it happen. Almost no one else really talks about it either. It's just kind of this third party after the fact. It happened to me, and no details.
And I didn't he die like a year ago or 9 months? Like, it had been a while.
Like a little bit before the book started.
Yeah.
This did not happen last week.
No, it felt like the kind of time frame where like the family might still be mourning, but people not in the family wouldn't still be being expected to mourn.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Trauma shielded or emphasized by the characters. I would argue shielded, aka almost entirely ignored for those reasons Robin just stated.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, as Robin said, are we supposed to care about this trauma?
Yeah, and there's
really
also
feel like it.
There's also several times where it's like, oh, did someone else die? No, the person who died a year ago. Oh, okay, all right.
All right,
like,
still him, okay.
You know, having to remember some tertiary characters having to be, like, reminded, oh, yeah, that boyfriend, that one family died. Like, it...
Right.
Yeah. He is much less consequential to everyone else than he would like to think.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he, even dead, is 100% sure that everything in life revolves around him and his wants and his needs.
Yeah. Yep. All right, I think I'm ready to talk about our next topic. All right, our second topic is Overdose. So, in an effort to try and get rid of the ghost who is stalking her, more details on that in our third topic.
It all leads back to this.
Leland takes some herbs that she's given by a medium, and she's told that if she takes these at specific intervals and times, then it should keep the ghost from getting into her dreams, which was a problem. And then she takes too much of it to try and super duper make him not be in her dreams. And it causes an overdose and puts her into a coma. And so one of the things with this is that kind of going on in the background of a bunch of really cool stuff in the spirit realm that we're not going to spoil. There's kind of the background knowledge that keeps having reminders for her that this is going on, that her body is in a coma and people are taking care of it on an ongoing basis. Like, her outfits keep changing, just like a bunch of little stuff that makes her continually aware that somewhere her body is hopefully not dead yet. And being taken care of. And also, her father and Amma think that because we don't have their perspective, it's hard to know if they think she tried to kill herself, or like Amma knows about the herbs, knows where she got them from. But there were like several things where people around her could have reason to think that it's on purpose, and whether or not it was on purpose, I don't know. I don't want to say that it was like better or worse if they think it was on purpose or an accident. I don't think that.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily know that if they think about it super hard that it'll really change their reaction. Because either it's on purpose to get away, or it was an accident because she was so intent on getting away that she didn't bother to check the amount. Like, both are her running away and not caring what happens to her.
And also with like, just thinking of stuff where like, so Amma knows what's happening. And if I remember correctly, her father has also, I don't remember if she's tried to tell him or if she didn't try to tell him because he thinks all this spirit stuff is garbage and he wouldn't have listened anyway. I don't remember which of the two it was.
I don't remember if she eventually tells him, but she spends a lot of time on, no, he won't accept it and he won't care. And worst case scenario, he'll try and exorcise me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I don't think she tells him. Yeah. No, she doesn't tell him. Yeah. So, this isn't the first thing I've read where character in a coma ends up in a liminal afterlife space. I like it as a thing. Like, and as for how much it's emphasized in the narration, she keeps like thinking about it as a decision and wishing she hadn't done it and just like trying to figure out how to deal with it. Like, even more so, like there is more, I think, I don't want to like overstate this, but I'm pretty sure there's more emphasis given to the fact that she had this accidental overdose than to the fact that the other guy was probably murdered.
Oh, in a page and a half, more emphasis on it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, this is the thing that she did that wasn't on purpose that is messing up what she had left of her freedom in her life. The murder is just kind of like, oh, you mean it wasn't illness at the very end, but you were still sick? Okay, fine.
Yep. And in terms of like, whether the trauma is shielded or emphasized by the characters, the narrative, well, so it's emphasized.
She spends a lot of time dwelling on it.
Yeah, but also because we don't get the specific reactions of all the people who are dealing with the daily aftermath of just trying to keep her body alive, I think there's a way in which, I don't know, it feels like it's both shielded and emphasized in different ways. So I guess like literally there's no real shielding from like the specific overdose. That is true. It's like this happened and now she has to keep dealing with it. I might be talking to myself into agreeing with you that it's emphasized and it's not really shielded. No, I've talked myself into it. I agree with you. I think more there are ways that it could have dwelled more. Like if she had,
for sure.
Like, there's things that mean she's kept away from the house and kept from getting to look at her body. And so, like, there aren't what could have been continual scenes of, oh, they're still taking care of me.
And
she just,
and also her body is in a coma and not slowly rotting. There would have been a lot of worse, quote unquote, ways to do this. Yeah.
No, but she's having to infer what's going on with her physical body based on how her spirit body is affected, which I like because it means that we're not spending a bunch of time with her hovering over herself sleeping.
Yes.
Which, you know, it's one of those things that's much cooler in a movie than in a book, because in the movie it's like, oh my god, they're both in the same the person in the scene twice. I don't know. That's like a visual thing that I do enjoy in films, but in books, it's like, to me at least, it's not really anything, and I'm glad that she didn't just hover a bunch.
Well, we do get some reminders. We do get like her dwelling on the need to go back and trying to get back, and we do get we do get some semi-constant reminders that people are taking care of her, that her hair is suddenly brushed and her clothing refreshes to be whatever new outfit they put on her and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's still pretty calm.
Yeah, and also part of the point of that was that time runs differently, and so one of her few ways of keeping track of time that's passing in the real world is how often her clothes are changed. It's not true. Detailed to a degree that the reader could track it, but it clearly is something that she's
paying attention to.
Paying attention to. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm ready to talk about the stalking now, because I think we've laid the groundwork for everything we can talk about that isn't that.
Would you
And
say
now
that
it's time
we've
to
been
talk about
slowly?
that.
Would you say that we've been slowly stalking the topic?
Oh my god. Yeah, we've been slowly following it, getting closer.
Slowly,
yeah, for sure.
Tracking the breadcrumbs. All right. Third topic.
Yep. On to our third topic, which is stalking. Okay, so for this one, we might end up spoiling some things in the book. I don't know if we will, but of the topics, this is the one where it gets hard to avoid things that are probably spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
So Lim Tianqing is stalking Lilan from the grave, and like, oh my god, just I've already said how insufferable he is, but one of the things that makes this to me such like, okay, so with stalking, anyone, in a general sense, anyone can stalk anyone else. But often when it's scariest for the person being stalked, it seems to me, is not that it's not scary to be stalked, but just like one of the scarier versions of it is when the person doing the stalking thinks that there's this super intense connection between them, that the person being stalked either like it literally isn't there, or just there's this giant mismatch in emotional intensity. And, you know, I don't really want to like grade ways you can stalk someone. I just think that he's going about it in one of the creepier ways. He saw her one time at a festival and didn't talk to her. Yeah. And also she was from childhood engaged to his cousin. And he's like, you know what? I'm dead. That's who I'm gonna marry.
Yeah.
The girl I didn't talk to at a party who was supposed to marry my cousin. Like,
my younger cousin.
Yeah.
Who is also 7 years or 9 years older.
Yeah, and like there's also some things where like the arranged marriage probably isn't gonna work out, because now that this guy is dead, the cousin might inherit, and that changes the family's willingness to marry him to a basically penniless girl. So like there's some complicating things where the arranged marriage to his cousin might not be in play anymore, but him worrying about any of that when he is a ghost is pretty creepy. And like, I say that like even within the fantasy version of this basic cultural context in the book, where like ghost marriages have been a thing. The fantasy bit is that we get the ghost's perspective, which you don't normally get to have. Like even within that, there is a like cultural space for this practice such that Lilan's father can say, hey, this guy's family wants there to be a ghost marriage. Part of, to me, what makes it like creepy and definitely stalking, even within that context, is like him showing up in her dreams and putting these, like, I think they were bullhead bodyguards like around the house.
Yeah.
To try it, like the guards. I said bodyguards. That's not what they were. They were guards to try and
they're guarding her body from her.
Kind of. I guess they are bodyguards, but it's not about really protecting her. It's about like preserving her for him or whatever.
Yeah.
So I just monologued. What are your thoughts?
In general?
I mean about the stalking.
Oh.
In the book.
About that. Okay.
Yeah, about that.
I think that it's handled in a way where we get to see a lot of her freedom from him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
it's not a book where you have a character who keeps trying to leave or go places and then he just appears. He shows up in her dreams a lot at first. Then we find out there's a direct magical reason tied that he's able to do that, which in turn lets her accidentally, after on purpose, escape it. And then she goes off and has her own investigation adventures for a while. I think that it's probably the mildest on-screen stalking I've ever read that is still active and present in the narrative. And the stalking is a symptom of the larger behavioral problem of the character that's doing this to her. You know, as Robin was talking about, like, the forced marriage, the lack of consent, the marriage to a ghost who can't even, you know, be there and present in her daily life, you know, who's literally just married to, she would just be marrying him to be his, like, possession at that point. This isn't a marriage for love. She doesn't care about him. She doesn't even know him. This isn't a marriage because she wants it. It's a marriage because he wants to claim her and because his family wants to claim her.
And it's also a marriage to deal with her father's debts. So, like, literally
that's
everyone
the blackmail
but
to make her say yes.
Everyone but her is getting something out of this.
Yeah.
Because, like, with an arranged marriage to a living person, this doesn't always go well, but in, you know, a living arranged marriage, the bride at least gets, like, a companion and a partner, and sometimes that works out and sometimes that doesn't, but she'd at least get someone on a daily basis to be with her.
Yeah.
She doesn't get that. Him showing up and being in her dreams and leaving, like, it just it doesn't
not just
give
being
her
in
any
her dreams, but bringing her into his world in her dreams. Like, he's not following her along as she has a dream. He is taking her out of her sleep, out of her rest.
Yeah, that's true. And also, like, she'd be expected to do, like, she would instantly be a widow. By marrying him when he's already dead, she'd have to perform mourning for this person that she's only talking to because his ghost won't leave her alone.
Yeah.
Which also, with, like, her father not believing about the spiritual stuff, like, her father definitely doesn't understand or doesn't believe that. Even if she tried to tell him, it doesn't seem like he would believe that that's what's being set up. He'd be just like, oh, you know, like, you'll go and live in this house and be taken care of. You get to fast
track your way into widowdom and just have some money. Yay. And she's like, no, you don't understand. This is
He's like, wouldn't you like to sit in a house with strangers and not have to worry about money ever again? And it's like, well, part of that sounded good. And part of it,
other than the being with the controlling, abusive strangers part,
I was gonna say part of the not having to worry about money sounds good, but also her freedom being bargained away, because, like, she had the expectation of an arranged marriage, like, that is something she wasn't necessarily looking forward to, but, like, could expect because of her, like, her cultural context. Like, she's like, okay, like, this is how marriage works for women like me. Like, this is just how this goes. But she at least thought she'd get a person who is around and extant and corporeal,
able to also do household chores and whatever.
Exactly.
Else. Like, yeah.
It's
the worst part of single motherhood, except that your spouse doesn't go home and also doesn't exist and doesn't care. That's probably a bad joke, but...
I mean, the thing is, like... Sorry, the thought that I got derailed on was, like, her father thinks he's marrying her to like the memory of someone who isn't around anymore. Right. And he doesn't believe or doesn't understand that not only does she not get any help day to day, she also has an annoying person talking to her every night.
And leeching her health. That's a thing we didn't even touch on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I don't know that
contact with the living, either in your dream or them touching you in the real world, will sap your life force, essentially, in this book. So he is killing her by inches for his own selfish reasons.
Yeah, and I don't remember if he was specifically... Did we find out that he's specifically doing that? Because I know with a different character, a ghost is doing that.
Yeah, well, it happening to her is the first time we hear about it happening. Because the doctor inspects her and is like, oh, you have very little life force. Why? What is happening?
Oh, that's true. Why is your chi so low? Okay. Yes, I remember now. But also, like, so we have, like, the starter bit kind of it happening to her. And then there's also a secondary character who's a ghost who is doing this to a living person.
Mm-hmm. This living person looks like they're 80 and they're, like, 57.
Yeah, and the ghost is like, he looks good for 57. And all of the narration up until now had been like this ancient old man moving slowly.
This walking corpse, barely clinging to life and barely able to move through his house. Yeah. She's like, yes, he will be mine soon. Like, no.
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, my brain tried to make a pun out of cyber stalking, but couldn't grab the word that would make it a pun.
Ooh. Wait, now how far did you get?
A little bit. Oh, you need a word and then the word stalking. I didn't get very far. Yeah, no. I ghost stalking, it's not anything. It doesn't... yeah. No, I got it. Casper stalking, but I don't think that works. And also that's a reference to a movie from a ghost movie from a completely different cultural context. So it's
that ghost kind of does not that ghost, but other ghosts in that movie kind of do a similar thing.
This is true. Yeah.
I've
Anyway,
seen Casper one time. It's not a movie that I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I just didn't really enjoy it. And yet, somehow, my brain has clung to that information.
Yeah. I watched it several times. Anyway, back to this, which also has a show made off of it. Anyway.
Wow, we're really distractible today, especially me.
It must be all the dang ghosts.
Yep.
But yeah, so I don't like Lim Chin Ching. I don't like him. He sucks. And he's stalking Li Lan, and he needs to stop. For me, that'd be nice. Yeah, and I'm ready for the wrap up.
Video games are a unique medium.
They can tell stories,
Immerse us in strange, fantastic worlds.
blur the very boundaries of our reality.
But at the end of the day, video games are fun. Whatever fun is to you.
I'm Jeff Moonen,
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
and on Fun and Games, we talk about the history, trends, and community of video games.
It's a celebration of all the games we play and all the fun we find within them.
And there's so many more games out there, so we hope you'll share in that conversation with us.
Fun and Games podcast with Matt and Jeff. Find us on certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
And happy gaming.
On to the wrap-up and ratings for The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo. For our first topic, which is murder, for the gratuity rating, backstory, off-screen, mild, moderate, or severe. This is literally backstory. Right? Am I missing something?
Oh no, this is backstory.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I mean, we literally find out it happened like a year later.
Yeah. Well, yep. Nope. That's literally backstory. That was easy. Okay. All right. Overdose. I would think mild or moderate.
Wait, for which one?
Overdose.
Oh, this is tough. Well, okay. So on the one hand, you could argue it's mild because the character doesn't even know that it's happening.
Yeah.
But also you do have like a slow horror realization that, oh no, I can see my own body.
Yeah. So maybe moderate. Like I don't
call it
think
severe.
it's. I don't.
Okay.
Like, but the things that would be severe are like other associated things, not the actual overdose.
That's fair. I mean, I'm okay with that. I just struggling to figure out my own opinion.
The stalking,
severe.
I do think that's severe. All right. Integral, interchangeable, or irrelevant is the murder.
Irrelevant.
All right. How irrelevant is the murder to the plot? It's so irrelevant that it's ambiguous as to whether it was murder.
Yeah. It's almost a manipulation plot point instead of like a thing that matters that it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. True. All right. For the overdose, I think this is interchangeable.
What could it have been interchanged with?
Literally anything else that would have put her in a coma.
Like a head injury?
Yeah, I mean, like there's, or she could have been poisoned instead of like.
She was poisoned. No, I know what you mean. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, like there's a difference between took too much of a thing she meant to take and someone else gave her a thing. Like even that basic thing is different as a trauma.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Stalking.
Yep, stalking is integral to the plot.
I want to argue it's.
Oh, do you think it's interchangeable?
I think it might be interchangeable because we'll go. Okay, here's why. We had a slight debate that was mostly me trying to quantify something, whether this topic would even be stalking, because it's not just stalking. It is magical coercion. It's
sure.
Like there's some other things that kind of tie in, and he doesn't have to be following her.
I do see your point. They could have all of the.
He could have been. I am a ghost trapped in her dreams and only there when she's asleep and not intending to follow. It could have been his mother's plan and he had no part in it. Like there's other ways that this plot could have happened basically identically that.
Oh my goodness!
Don't actually require him to be doing this thing.
I agree. You could have had the first half of the book basically be the same if.
And then her just discover that he's just kind of there.
Right. Oh no, I didn't know a ghost marriage was this literal. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You could have had that realization much later.
Or
wow.
You mean my mother's going through this anyway, even though I'm already gone? Like,
yeah. Wow. No, I agree.
Or we could even have had like a more emphasis on the murder thing and like a solve my murder. You're the only one I can reach out to. And she's like, get away from me. Like,
or she doesn't say get away from me and she says, I'll help you, but don't make me marry you. Like there could have been.
Yeah. Like the plot itself could have been pretty much identical with slightly different motivation that wouldn't actually change what happened.
Huh. Nope. I think you're right. I agree. It's interchangeable. Okay, all right.
We have a third topic that's interchangeable. I know we have them, but it's not very often.
Yeah, usually the things that let it be interchangeable aren't the things that push us to want it to be our third topic. All right.
Care.
For the care rating, for the murder, I do think this was treated with care.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say either enough or yes. I would lean more towards just.
I think it's a yes because it's it's even debatable whether it happened, but not in a gaslighty way, and
Right.
almost doesn't really matter what it was that he uses as like this weird kind of blackmail. Like, that's not really the point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this thing that matters.
We spend
immensely.
less than 2 paragraphs in the entire book on it. Like,
it's a detail that matters immensely to a character we don't like and aren't supposed to like.
Yeah. But they're not even enough for it to really make an impression anywhere else. Yeah.
Yep. The overdose, I think.
I can't just go with yes.
No.
But I'm okay with enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I think generally speaking it's enough. Then for the stalking,
no.
Yeah, no, like it's not
Or not enough, but I would argue no.
Yeah, I'm good with just saying no. Like, it's not going out of its way to be extra scary more than it would have to be just for being stalking.
No, but there's no real care.
There's not a lot of cushion.
Not a lot of cushion. It's a perpetual kind of threat in every move she makes for like 3/4 of the book. Yeah. It is the thing that she's desperately trying to unravel is how this is even possible to do to her. It's like, not unravel as in figure it out necessarily, but unravel as in undo.
Try to mitigate, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, okay, I would argue. Can I just make an argument here? I think that part of the reason that it ends up being severe, no care, and interchangeable is because it is so severe with no care taken. It lets it have more weight than it could really be allowed in other circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can really make a pretty direct line there from this is so traumatic and severe and no care taken, which lets it really overshadow its actual effect.
Right.
Or its actual plot relevance, I should say. Plot dependency, not even relevance, dependency.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. All right, for the moral directionality, I think this is pretty clear. Like, the course of this is her gradually untangling a complicated mess of people just kind of being terrible to each other over time. But what she keeps uncovering is people being terrible to each other over time. Like, it's super clear that that's a thing she's uncovering.
Right. It's not what if it was actually good. It's even worse. Oh no.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt in for us as readers, and whether it's okay or not, or justified or not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super clear. Yeah. It's her going, wait, is this more complicated than I think it is? Oh no, you all just suck. Just over and over and over.
Yeah.
For the point of view for trauma and aftermath, I mean, it's Leland for everything. It's her perspective.
Right.
Which means it's not the character who's murdered. Yes, the character who overdoses, and the character who is stalked. That's how that breaks down. But it's all her.
But she's at least related to everything that happens, which is not always true when we have different perspectives.
Yep.
Well, when you have a singular perspective for things that happen to different people. There we go.
Yeah. The opposite of the first thing. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. For the trope spotter. All right. So this is one that I got to through navigating my way through a couple of pages because I was pretty sure this was a thing, and then I found it.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Due to the Dead, which is the idea as a trope that you have to treat the bodies of the deceased in a particular way. It could be that there's ceremonies, it could be that there's offerings, it could be that there's just some kind of thing that you have to do after someone dies in a particular way, often with the implication that if you fail to do it, then it will have consequences for them in whatever kind of afterlife is involved in the story. And at minimum, the hungry ghosts would fit into this. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff with like burning spirit money and a bunch of like cool thing. Obviously this book is set before cell phones, but it made me remember that like in the modern day, people who still burn spirit offerings will burn like paper cell phones. So that that's like cool. That's a thing. Yeah, like that's like the current modern day version of this. That's one of the things that gets burned because it's, you know, the possessions. You got to be able to call people in the afterlife. Anyway, that's not in this book because this is set during like colonial times, when the country was still called Malay instead of Malaysia. But anyway, it reminded me of that thing. But yeah, so with like the spirit money and the offerings and all of that stuff, and then how if someone doesn't have any spirit money or spirit food, or doesn't have any spirit offerings, then they won't have anywhere to live and won't have conveyances and won't have money and won't have sustenance, and they become hungry ghosts. That's a thing that gets explored, and I like it. It shows up a lot in the book, and it's just a whole bunch of permutations of this trope of due to the dead. All right, what was your favorite non-traumatic thing about the book?
I really like the idea. I shouldn't say I find it very funny that you have to burn everything for a spirit to get it, except food. You just have to offer it to them, and then they smell it, and their bellies fill up. And I just find that very just visually funny. Like food is beyond your grasp.
Well, not only that, but like the bland, tasteless food that they have was paper versions of food. Yeah, because
you're literally denied food.
Yeah.
Because you can get like the fake versions of food, or you can smell the real one, but that's it. You're cut off from actual food. I just find that particular thing that they're like denied this one thing very entertaining.
Yeah. All right. So my favorite non-traumatic thing is the ending, the resolution, the how she ends up and why, because discussing exactly what trope this is would spoil the book in a way that I absolutely do not want to, because it is delightful, but just kind of the slow discovery of an aspect of the book that isn't really clear until the final third or fourth of the book. And then it just opens up her options for a resolution that's good for her in a way that wasn't obvious at the start that it was a choice. And I like that because it means that I don't spend the whole book going, this is the third way for you to take. But then it appears.
Yeah.
And it's nice. And I like it. I hope that was
vague enough.
If it was frustratingly vague, it was in a way where people will read the book. And not just be sad that I couldn't say more without spoilers. But yeah, so that's my favorite thing, is how the wrap up and resolution is handled. So thank you everyone for joining us for this meandering discussion of The Ghost Bride by Yangsze Choo. And we will catch you next episode. All music used in this podcast was created by Nicole as Heartbeat Art Co. and is used with permission. Our transcriptionist is Heather. You can find her on Twitter at MamaDragon20 or on TikTok at MamaDragons_den. We're proud members of the Certain Point of View network of podcasts. Check out all the Certain POV shows at www.certainpov.com. Please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/booksthatburn. If you can't wait for the next episode and need even more book-related content in your life, check out our book review blog, Reviews That Burn, subscribe to the fortnightly newsletter, or follow us on the Story Graph. You can contact us by email at booksthatburn@yahoo.com and find all our links, contact info, and social media on our card, booksthatburn.carrd.co. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and remember, some books burn you.